Hello, welcome to the Permission Mission Show, live here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I am Mary McElhatton, your host for today, and we have a very special guest with us. We are going to talk about some hard stuff today.
Let's do it.
We have our guest here, Lisa Chastain, is a professional money coach that helps passionate and successful women shed the shame and guilt around their finances to focus on healthy spending instead of restricted budgeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, what of all topics and of all things to do in this world, why money for you?
Money for me today, which wasn't always the reason, but today the reason is because I want women to be the leaders of the world financially.
Awesome. So giving us women some pretty big shoes to fill.
Yes.
And be okay with it.
Be okay with it.
I want that.
I want that too. And I believe that that's what will change the direction of this planet. When women have more control of more money, more ownership of more money, we will see beautiful things happen. And we're already starting to see that. But that's my primary goal. And then through the work that I do, we have a mindset that we need to heal and shift and grow to get there.
That's interesting because money is one of those things similar to what I do for the show. Permission Mission is to normalize the conversation of mortality.
Yep.
And money's got a lot of shame on it as well as people not wanting to talk about the reality of mortality. 100% of us will go one day. And I've noticed that they are just similar, people waiting on pre-planning most times don't have the financial backing. So here you are wanting to make sure that people have money. And what really caught my attention with you, because I have budgeted. How many of you out there have attempted to budget time and time again and successfully failed, as I have?
Yeah, I would say that yes.
And so you have a different approach. Talk more about that. I love that you do it's not budgeting.
No. Well, I also failed at budgeting over and over and over again. My mom was the one who managed all the household finances growing up. My dad was the breadwinner. My mom didn't work. And so my experience at a young age was control. My mom had control of the money, but it really wasn't hers. It was my dad's. And as a household, they came together. And the only thing that she ever really taught me, and she did it beautifully, was how to balance my checkbook register and how to pay my bills. That was what she taught me. And from budgeting then, fast forward to college, high school, when I'm starting to make my own money, I'd get these budgeting worksheets and it never worked for my brain. My brain looked at that and I was like, what do I do with this? How do I even manage it? How do I navigate it? So yeah, I have 10% allotted to this and 5% allotted to this. And then I'd go look at my bank account and I'd be totally lost in how to actually make decisions.
That makes sense, I bet, and would resonate with a lot of people out there, because I too was the same. And I have banking background and I have CFO background. Yet at the same time, personally, I just couldn't seem to, how do you keep it all in track?
How do you keep track of all of it? And then also in a household where there's partners, you're each spending money, but not always communicating how you're spending the money, when you're spending the money. And so I see this a lot in households where they have a budget in place somewhere on an app or somewhere in a worksheet, but they're not really paying attention to it. So when it comes to, hey, I'm going to stop at the store on the way home and pick up broccoli.
Yeah.
How do you account for that and know that you have the money for it? There's a disconnect for a lot of people when it comes to managing a budget versus making decisions. And so for me, instead of trying to fit my brain into a box that didn't work for me anyway, I had to figure out a more simple way of making decisions. And that's when my brand was born, for a lot of reasons. That was a game changer for me and for a lot of my clients.
It got my attention. So the budgeting, not the budgeting direction, it's the savings.
Yes.
And how you help thousands of people get things on track
On track.
and not feel pressured by this thing that doesn't work for most people.
Well, here's the other thing, right? If you're horrible at budgeting for whatever reason, 2/3 of people associate math negatively. And so money then becomes this math problem that you can't fix because you're not good at math. And budgeting fits right into that box of you have to keep track of all of these numbers that don't make sense to you, or you have an emotional reason for why you don't want to look at the numbers. You can't do it. And so my systems, my programs, my philosophies is let's just forget the fact that you have to do it all together. And for a lot of people, they soften and can breathe and know that it's really not a math problem that we're trying to solve. I just want to help you make decisions that feel good for you.
Why do you think people shut down pretty quick when you're kind of dealing with money and savings? And, do you think, and is it common for people who have a lot of money and people who don't have a lot of money?
95% of our relationship with money is emotional. It goes
95%.
95%. It's in our unconscious mind. And if it's in our unconscious mind, it's emotionally connected. Yeah. We're making decisions out of memories and in our unconscious mind. And it goes all the way back to childhood. So the reason that our conversations with money are so emotionally charged is for a lot of us, we had emotionally charged households when it came to money, and we just carried that right into adulthood.
Gosh, I could totally relate. I know growing up in a house of 10 of 11 children. Yeah. And it was always tight, So I still catch myself like not wanting to spend because I always kind of go back to, well, things are tight, tight. And I really want to bust through that. And I know with your support and help that we will
bust through it. And I have stories of clients who came from big families, and things weren't just tight. You had to fend for yourself. Yeah. And so I can imagine, I don't know if this is your story, but even at the dinner table, everybody was trying to get their share.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the meat was scarce. So if I had a pork chop on my plate and I didn't eat it quick enough, it was brothers.
Exactly.
And then though, they would do something for me, like whether it's take out the trash or do the dishes, whatever, there'd always be a trade-off for it. But yeah, I can totally relate.
And food and scarcity and money all correlate together in our brains. Needs versus wants. Everything's connected through the thread of money. That our family didn't have enough, and then we didn't always have enough food, or we'd be volleying for each other for food, and that in our brain wires how it wires. We make decisions and we have negative beliefs of those experiences from a very young age. And so then when it comes to looking at our money situation as adults, what we don't realize is we have that 6-7-year-old person in our brains that's triggering us. And then we don't have the strategy. So before the show, we were talking about this, about why people don't talk about money.
Yeah.
Well, for the same reason they don't talk about death, because they don't have the strategies and tools to deal with it. Because if your family never dealt with it or had open, honest conversations, it never imprinted into you.
Interesting.
You never created the strategies to effectively have healthy conversation. And then what happens in the money industry is you're shamed and guilted for the decisions you are making. So why would we talk about it? Why would we talk about it?
Well, gosh, I can give you 1,000 reasons why the importance is to talk about it and not feel that, because I do find when I'm talking with families about prearranging, like I'm all about like be prepared, have things in order, let your assets go to great things when we've passed on. I just can't stand the fact that people do not see the value in having their assets placed and prepared in a way that sets their families up to win, instead of the fighting and the arguing and the bickering and the loss, just simply by not doing anything, goes into probate and causes a lot of issues at that point.
I would say that it's not that people don't care. And I think that's a common misconception. It's not that people don't care. It's not that you don't care about what happens.
Right.
It's that the thing that you're avoiding is exactly what ends up happening. So at the end of our life, or as we're facing the end of our life, even now, so you said you started preparing at the age of 50 years ago.
Yeah.
I and my husband did our estate planning. So even now I'm thinking about the end in mind. Yeah. For a lot of families, and for that person who's thinking about the end of their life, you are avoiding and afraid of the conflict, the fighting, and all the things you don't want to face in this life. So it's easier to avoid it and let others deal with it. So it's not
That
even from a
makes
place
sense.
of value or want.
Yeah.
It's fear.
It's the fear.
Mhm.
It's the fear of doing it wrong while we're with our families, and maybe the fear of facing this reality of whether it's about finances, not
Yeah.
enough finances, or
Fear
the
of judgment, fear of shame,
Yeah.
fear of guilt, fear of siblings fighting, to the extent that my parents basically have told us, I have 2 siblings, and they've said, you'll find out. It's all in the will. We're not having this conversation while we're alive.
Gotcha.
While we're alive.
Yeah.
Why not? Why not? So those are the emotions that stop us.
So how do you get through the emotions with people who have those strong programs of when we're younger, we're attached to them? How do you detach us from them?
There's no way to detach from it.
Okay.
And if you're someone who really has a desire to work on it, the first thing is, I know for me, so my story, probably the most powerful experience I've had with death in my life was the death of my grandmother.
Okay.
And she was, in a lot of ways, the matriarch. And for me, she was my safe person growing up.
Yeah.
I had no idea the impact that my grandmother's death had on me until years later. Mm. One of the reasons was that I had so much sadness and so much guilt. And I was young. I was a teenager probably when she first got sick. But as a family, we didn't talk about it. And I didn't have the strategies. And as the youngest child, I didn't really feel empowered to have these conversations with my family. And so it was outside help that helped me finally deal with the emotions. So I was trying to turn into my family for support, emotional support, and we were all grieving at the same time. Sure. So it took me getting coaching, going through programs, learning for myself how this works, really essentially trying to heal myself in the journey, that I realized that her death had such a big impact on me. It was such a loss, and I was grieving for so long, but my family doesn't outwardly grieve. And so where was I going to go?
Yeah.
Where was I going to go? Who was I going to talk to? And again, the patterning is deeply onset from generation after generation. For me, it started with asking for outside help. Like, hey, here's how it shows up. I'm not getting the results that I want in my life. I feel depressed or sad for no reason. I'm in relationships that are dysfunctional. It shows up in a number of ways. I'm unhappy at work. Yeah. Well, usually there's emotional stuff going on that we haven't dealt with that just impacts and impacts and impacts. And when it comes to death, it's one of the most tragic things that happen to us, even when we die. I don't know what happens to us when we die, but our families, it's a tragic, sad thing that we all need, which is why I'm so grateful for your show. We need new tools and strategies for coping with death and coping with money so that we can live happy lives, because isn't that the purpose of life?
It is. It is the only purpose in life,
Yes.
is to live the very best life and time that we have together, and to learn and grow. I was just talking to my mom this morning, and she actually said to me, Mary, she goes, because she loves the show. I mean, she's proud of coming from losing children herself. She's proud to be able to talk about her losses and see that that's a whole part of this life, even never knowing that you would lose a child, let alone 3. But we were just talking about how we've grown up, and matured, and through our losses, through our things that we didn't necessarily understand at the moment.
Right.
But like you're saying, with your whole experience losing your grandmother, good for you to reach out and get outside help, and just understand that had been sitting there. I think it's in a lot of people where they don't even realize it's just dormant. It's just still there, and it's not going to go away.
No.
But if we can gain things like knowledge from this show, and
Absolutely
gain the knowledge and the understanding and some tools and techniques on how you help people get over their emotional whatever it is, their emotional thoughts about money
Well, we don't really ever get over our emotions.
or get through them. So
Get
yeah, I always
through
say,
them.
even with death, you never get over death.
No.
You will only find a way to get through it, and it
Right.
comes with you. That's what I'm finding out myself, is just
Mhm.
like, it's just all a part of me now.
That's right.
And I've embraced it, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And
Yeah.
and they don't leave us. You know what I mean?
don't.
Like, your grandmother is still telling you
She
what to do
is.
in your life.
She is. When I meditate, and I've learned some techniques to be able to access that, for sure. I know she's always there. But for a long time, I felt like she was gone, and I was missing something. I was longing for something. And with death and money, they're so intimately connected.
Sure.
They're so intimately connected. For better or worse, they are. I know there are families where I don't know if you've had conversations about elder abuse on the show.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It is on one of the lists. It is to really bring that to the surface, so that because it's a hard thing to talk about.
And it's a real
and
thing.
It's happening.
And
it
it's a real
is
thing.
happening every day.
For what purpose?
For
money.
Yeah, for the purpose of money. Gosh, dang it.
Mm-hmm.
It's relatable to money.
All of it. Or family members who are just waiting for the person to die.
Yeah.
For what purpose? Money. It's sad to say, but I see it all the time in the finance industry. And I'm privileged in the way that I've built my business. I'm privileged to have conversations with people that they don't share. What they share with me, they don't share with anybody else.
Right.
And I hear on the other side of it, the anguish and the hurt and the fear and the guilt that goes with all of that. And then what do? We bottle it up, and we pretend as if it never happened.
Gosh, that just gets my mind just going. Like, how come we wouldn't talk about all this?
How come we wouldn't? We don't have the strategies, is what it comes down to. So going back to my grandmother, what I meant to say earlier is that I was so emotionally charged, and I didn't realize it. One, because I was numbing. I was numbing in all kinds of ways. So I was trying to avoid the thing because I didn't know how to deal with it. It really felt like for a long time that if I allowed myself to feel what I needed to feel, that I was going to die. It felt like death, metaphorically. Wow. That I was going to fall apart. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, is if we give ourselves the time to grieve, or we give ourselves the time to really think about it and feel it, that we're going to lose our shit. We're going to lose ourselves. And we end up doing that anyway, but it's the fear of the actual emotion, the Hollywood version of emotion of people falling on the floor and cracking wide open. Without the right support, why would we do that? It doesn't feel very safe to do that, especially if we don't know how to patch ourselves back up and get back to living again.
Sure.
And so I never grieved or faced it. And I think that when it comes to death and money, we don't, because we truly just don't know how.
So would you say that even like stages of dealing with money and whether, as we grow up, all of us are wanting to obviously create more wealth and strategies of how to have it work for us more than us working for it.
Sure.
So would you say that like even a person has to kind of grieve a little bit of themselves, the way that they were dealing with money?
Absolutely.
Before?
You have to come to terms with whatever you're doing. If you want something financially and you haven't yet figured out how to have it, you have to take a look back and look at the person that you were. They got you this far, but the person that you were isn't going to get you to the next level. Because it's going to require a different version of yourself to get to the next level. You will have to let go of and grieve that version of yourself. And I work with women in the decade metaphor. So this is something that your listeners can take I think you can take away with this, is that metaphorically, when we cross over from 20 to 30, there's a death and a grieving of our 20s.
Sure. For sure.
For sure.
For sure.
And I work with a lot of women who are facing their 30th birthday who know that intuitively, but they're not ready for it. And that was me for sure. I loved my 20s. I loved my 20s. But then I got into my 30s and I had friends who were still living as if they were in their 20s. And I was not going to still live that lifestyle. I had a kid. I needed to transition
Yeah.
And in order to do that, I had to grieve my 20s. And so we do ceremonies in my world,
That's
helping
awesome.
people grieve their pasts or their former selves.
Yeah.
Because it's going to require you to get to be somebody different. You might have to let go of relationships. You might have to shift. I know you've been through divorce.
I have.
I went through a divorce. To make those transformations, to make those changes, we have to grieve our former selves and give gratitude.
Absolutely.
This person got me here. Holy wow, amazing. Okay, well, next, now I need to be somebody different.
Divorce and death are the two most difficult stresses in our life.
Yeah.
Because they are obvious. I think divorce is sometimes even worse than death because you're mourning the person with them still there. There's a lot of love, a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. However, there's always life after divorce too. And I'm grateful for, again, just learning about, what I was capable of doing. I'm sure you've come a long way. By the way, Lisa is an amazing wife, mother, dog owner.
I have 3 dogs.
And I love the work that you're doing with helping people create strategies and be passionate about money instead of fearful and afraid. If anybody on the show out there has a question for Lisa, please feel free to put it in the chat. We always want to welcome you into the show so that you take advantage of our, having some real life discussions with us, because when it comes down to something that's hard, we want to make it easier.
Absolutely.
And would you say that what is the biggest misconception that people recognize once they've started working with you?
Well, okay. So beliefs are not facts.
Okay.
And I would say that that's the biggest misconception, is that we think that what we believe about money is true. And so when someone comes into my world, we just break all of those beliefs apart so that someone can have the courage to decide what it is that they really want for their life. So I think that's the biggest thing, is that your beliefs are not facts. And if you have the courage to look at your beliefs, you also have to face the choices that you've made. The second is, life is not happening to you. And so there are people who come to me in what we would call a victim mindset. And I know that you've done work around the distinction between victim and responsible.
I was a victim for years. I'm victim to my circumstances, victim to my money.
Totally.
Absolutely.
So it's not my fault, someone else's fault. In my marriage, I was pointing the finger at my husband constantly about, what are you going to do about it? Because that's how I grew up. I grew up in a household where my dad was making the money.
Sure.
And then I ended up being a stay-at-home mom, looking at my husband saying, you are the one that needs to make the money. That was a belief that I had that I needed to challenge and shift and stop being a victim to my circumstances, being a victim to my money.
Yeah.
Once I took radical responsibility for my life and for my money, things changed.
And isn't it feel so good?
So good. So good. For better or worse, now the only person I have to look at now is in the mirror.
Oh, goodness, yes. And they're the one we wake up with. They're the one that we go to sleep with. They're the one who absolutely has all the answers.
Yeah.
Right?
I do believe that.
I do believe that. I've been looking and searching for answers outside of myself. And let me tell you, it doesn't ever work. Meaning it's a timing thing, right? I mean, when you're ready for it, it's like when you're ready for something new, the teachers appear.
Agreed.
But it takes and requires a great student.
It does.
Because nothing's going to change unless the student's willing to do the work.
Agreed.
So,
yeah, there's no magic formula for transforming your life or changing your life.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to face what you need to face so that you can get to the other side of it.
What's your most rewarding story?
Oh my gosh, I have so many.
Sure. Just pick one.
Oh my gosh.
Or even a couple. When you're done and you have seen these results with your people.
So there aren't many stories that I have where we were done.
Okay.
Right? Where it's like this happened and then this person ended up here and then we stopped working together and their life was magically better. It's a process. It's a journey. And there are remarkable changes that are happening with the clients that I work with. One in particular, I just adore her. She's in her late 20s And she grew up in an environment in the Midwest that was very traditional. You go to college, you get married, you have kids. Her siblings are following that path, and she's like, I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. And so in our journey together, which we've been working together for 2 years, she's living the life that she wants for herself.
I love hearing that. Living your own life.
She's accepted that it's okay, because for so long she felt rejection from her parents.
Sure.
It's okay for her to live the way that she wants to live, and she can continue to be loved by her parents, but she doesn't have to live the way her parents want her to live.
Yeah.
And so seeing her take step after step after step into the direction of her dreams, the permission, which is why I love the show Permission Mission.
Yes.
You have permission. And she needed someone, and another woman, I think, to tell her it's okay.
Yeah.
You have permission.
I know, being a mother, we want always the best for our kids,
Always.
right? And so what's comfortable for us is kind of what we give to our kids.
Yep.
Meaning, however, I love what someone said to me one time, and I've taken it and I've applied it with my own kids, and that is, find out who you are, because I'm already taken. And I love that, because I do want them to explore who they want to be and how they want to be. And it is a lot of times not a direction I would have them go. And I have to breathe and just be quiet and trust the process. And I see how they are just becoming into their own. So that's what you've done with this young lady.
Yeah.
And how freeing is that for her?
For her, she's having so much fun.
Wow. Yeah. Just
so
at
much
peace.
fun. And the number one reason, so talking about death, the number one reason people don't live is because of money. That they don't go on the vacations, that you don't do the thing, you don't start the business, you don't make the impact that you want to make, is because of money. And then you spend your whole life not living. And then on your deathbed, ask yourself the question of, what did I do with my life if it wasn't living?
Which is probably a big fear for people to get to that end of life, going, what really have I done?
Yeah.
What have I wasted?
Well, here's the framework, and I believe that through Sai seminars you've learned this, but if you haven't, I have in my coaching experiences. What you resist persists.
What you resist will persist. Death is going to persist. However,
it's happening.
We can do it differently.
Yes.
We can definitely go out. I feel like if you're willing to do the hard stuff now, you will enjoy the great stuff at the end.
Yes.
My mom is a perfect example of that.
How so?
Just in the way that she really acknowledges, like, this life with all of the challenges that she's had to face and endure, and make it into something great to the end. I mean, she's happy. She's living in her little log cabin in Illinois on 2 acres, and she's happy. And she's 89. And you would think that someone having lost 3 children and a husband, and having grown up in an orphanage, and all these things that were against her, she's like, I'm making a life. I'm making it. I'm living it. I'm living my dreams. And she's such an inspiration. But to just kind of, there are a lot of people, I've heard it this way. People die in their 30s. They're just not buried until their 80s or 90s.
That's exactly what happens. We have a major traumatic event. We never deal with it. Our neurology gets stuck there. We never move forward. We never truly live.
Well, I think we're going to see some changes, Lisa.
That's my goal.
I really see your passion in it, that you want people, you're always, all your posts and all your content and all the things out there that Lisa's doing is strictly just for people, and to start living. And then the permission part of it is, yes, we give you permission to actually take that vacation. I was just in Cabo with my husband, and it was a last minute kind of thing. I wasn't going to go until I gave myself permission to go. Listen, Mary, like, you're 58, like, life's not stopping anytime soon, and this could be a trip of a lifetime. And it was the coolest thing. I was telling you about the turtles, when, the large turtles were coming out and laying their eggs. Well, we happened to be there the week that the all the turtles were making their way to the ocean.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's so crazy. Like these turtles just dump their eggs. They leave their kids.
Yep.
Okay. They just leave them. They protect them. They cover them all up. And then they just go.
That's it.
And you're on your own.
That's it.
And look, our parents, even though some may have been great parents, some may have not, but at least they gave some time to us.
Of course.
I mean, so that makes a good parent right there,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They could put a roof over your head. Yeah, I'm not, I'm not the greatest parent in the world. I'm a pretty good one, but it's only by learning, just by learning. I didn't come out being a great mom.
Can we say, though, honestly, there is no such thing as a perfect parent?
No, there isn't. Mm-hmm. And there's no perfect way of talking or not talking. There's no perfect way to talking about death either.
No.
Or money. It's just like what we're doing.
It's messy. It's messy. It's
and
like
it's
you
okay.
have to learn. It's okay. It is going to be an emotional conversation because 95% of our lives is in the emotional body of our lives. So it is going to be emotional. What happens is somewhere along the way, we decide that emotions aren't safe. And so we stop feeling emotions. And if we decide that if it's not safe to feel emotions, I'm going to be shut down, I'm going to be made wrong, someone's right, all of the things. I know for me as a young girl, I didn't feel safe to be emotional in my family. It was like, shut down, stop crying.
Yeah.
So we have this emotional thing. We don't know how to deal with it. So we go back to what we know, which is shutting down, numbing, working, becoming addicts, workaholics, all kinds of things to fix something that cannot be fixed in that way. And I would say I'm so excited to be on your show, and let's talk about whatever you want to talk about next. But when you have the courage to face your own death is when you also have the same opportunity to decide to live.
She said it. I did not set her up to say that. You get it. Mm-hmm. It is about living. It's not about dying. I do my best every single day to educate individuals on the importance of having this talk today while you can, while things are okay, on a logical day. And, I was telling you earlier, like I had hang-ups this week and I was like, okay, I'm quitting. I don't need to do this anymore.
I'm out.
It's not my job to make everybody aware of, something they should already be aware of, and then I'm like back in my heart going, no, this is important. I care about families. I care about people staying together. I care about people who have worked their hard lives, their whole lives, having that make a greater impact, because I believe we do have an abundant world.
Yeah.
We just have a massive distribution problem.
Yep, we do.
And it's not being distributed where
Correct.
It can be. And now we have ways that we can because we're doing this.
Yep.
We are doing this.
I agree.
Are there any questions in the chat? Anything? No. Okay.
All right.
It looks like we're on our own, Lisa.
Okay.
So I was going to ask you if you could give me some advice on helping families save for their pre-planning, the inevitable, their end of life planning.
Okay, so saving in and of itself is a practice and a skill set. And saving, what I see most families do when they come to me is that they're saving maybe. So first you have to learn how to save. That's the first thing.
Okay.
The second thing is I teach this in the form of spending and saving, is having different buckets for different purposes.
Okay.
When you allocate and you have specific money channeling in and funneling into a bucket for a purpose, you are much more likely to keep it there because your brain knows what to do with it.
Okay.
So, for example, saving for retirement in and of itself is not a goal that I would set with any client because, well, what do you want to retire for? And for what purpose will that money be used in retirement? And then we start to engineer a plan into retirement. Saving for the sake of saving never works.
Okay.
Because there's no purpose to it, and eventually you're going to use it for whatever.
Sure.
Whatever
like
comes
emergency comes up.
Whatever, right?
Yeah.
Also, I'm not a fan of calling emergency buckets. Why? Are you really attracting an emergency into
I
your
don't
life?
want an emergency.
No.
No.
No. So
Okay.
we call it something else. We call it a reserve bucket.
Okay.
Or we
Reserve.
Call, right,
I
a
like
reserve.
it. Like just kind of a back burner, or not even burner. I don't want anything negative on it.
That's
Is
right.
that what
So
you're
safety
saying?
and security are the
Okay.
two reasons that people will say when I go into audiences, I ask them what's important about money to you. Security is like the number one thing.
Okay.
So we put spins on that word and something that feels good, and it could just be, here's my safety blanket, here's my cushion. That's a much better way of saying it. This is a soft landing for me, so that I have that, so that if I know I have that, I have permission to go live my life because I have this safety net instead of my emergency reserve, which then I'm just attracting emergencies into my life. So first of all, learn how to save, and learn how to put money in different buckets for different purposes. And then also I would say educate yourself on what, and I know this is what you do for a living and then also on the show, is educate yourself on what the actual costs will be. And then create a bucket specifically. So I'm 44, going on 45. And if I know that it's $20,000 that I need, for example, I want to make sure it's earmarked in that way, so that in our will, in our estate planning document, it's all laid out there. We have this much for this much, we have this much for that much. And so someone else knows where the money is and for what purpose. So those are the three layers. Learn how to save first, give it a name, give it a purpose. Know exactly that this money is different from this money and for what purpose. And then tell that story to someone so that they know what it's for too.
You also talk about you and your husband having your own spending money.
We do.
And I love that. Now, because with Dan and I, it's kind of like there's no budget, or again, there's no opportunity to say, well, maybe I ought to keep it down a little bit, because this is what I have to work with. It's he needs this, or he wants this, and I want this, and I need this. And then at the end of the day, we're just going, wait a minute, what the heck? So how do you and your husband, how does that work for you guys?
And I will say it's not just for me and my husband. I have
for
just about every client that I work with figures this out for themselves in some way. So
Okay.
they modify it and they customize it for themselves. There's no one size fits all approach to money.
Got it.
Just so we're clear. In our household, how we do it is every week we have money that goes into our household account, and that's money that we use for groceries. We're going on date night tonight, so we'll use that for date night. If we order pizza on Fridays, we want to order a movie at the house. That's our household bucket for when we want household money spending. Jimmy also then gets, I think he's up to, don't quote me on this, because it started at $200 a week, and incrementally it's gone up because he keeps asking for a raise.
Oh gosh,
so he gets,
that's funny.
It went to $250, and I think it's at $275 a week. No questions asked. I don't even care what he spends the money on. That is his money to enjoy. Right now it goes to Dixon Flannels because he loves Dixon Flannels.
Oh,
but also he can spend it however he wants to spend it. I don't care, because the rest of our money is planned. The bills get paid. And that's a very healthy approach. And I have other households that do the same thing. And it's transformed families. It's transformed households because you're not fighting about money anymore.
I was going to say, because money is kind of the root of a lot of divorces.
Yeah.
Because they're not communicating effectively, and one may be spending more than the other. So there's a lot of arguing, a lot of resentment. And you're saying build, to each his own family, structure it in a way that it works.
Yes. And you
probably feel really good about yours.
I feel great.
Being able to spend what you want, your amount.
Yeah, I have my business and I have my business account. So he's like, yeah, but you have your business. I'm like, well, it's not like that. It's not like I'm just pulling out thousands and thousands of dollars for myself. But I have
Louis Vuittons or
no. I'm a blue collar girl. So I never, we had generic clothing and generic medications growing up. So I still don't do labels very well.
Yeah.
That's a value system that I have. No judgment on anybody who
no
loves that
judgment,
stuff, but
no judgment taken, girl. It's all just
it's speaking season for me, and I needed some new clothes, and I used my Apple Card and navigate paying that down, and I bought $250 worth of clothing, and neither one of us had a problem with it.
Nice.
Because again, bills are paid, we have money for groceries, we have money going into retirement, we're good.
Yeah.
What is there to fight about?
When you remove the money part of it, I'm sure there's a lot more joy.
It is.
There's a lot more joy.
It is.
We are going to take a commercial here. We will see you right back. Please stay tuned. We are live here in Las Vegas, Nevada on WWDBTV with Permission Mission. We'll see you in a minute.
Hello, folks. This is Mac Jackson Jr. from Vanderson Cyber Group. The problem with businesses today is that they are affected by cyber attacks from around the world, but companies are not sure of what to do. Normally, they are reactive instead of proactive. But folks, cyber attacks can affect your bottom line, and it will affect you financially, legally, and your business reputation. Here at Vanderson Cyber Group, we can help you develop a policy by training your employees on what to do if they are involved in a cyber attack and how to mitigate it and fight against it. Folks, we call it here #StayCyberWoke. And that's Vanderson Cyber Group here in Las Vegas and around the world. You can reach me, folks, at VandersonCyberGroup.com or my website, MacJacksonJr.com as well. Here locally, 702-868-0808. Give us a call today, folks. We must fight back.
Welcome back to the Permission Mission Show. My name is Mary McElhatton, your host here today with our guest, Lisa Chastain. She is talking about good stuff here. We're talking about money and talking about saving, learning how to save, talking about ways that relieve couples from arguing about their finances.
Yeah.
Number one deal breaker. A lot of divorces happen unnecessarily because of money.
Yeah, we could say it's about money, but ultimately I think that money is the external representation of the dysfunction of the relationship. Because if you're not on the same page about money, what else are you not on the same page about? And how we do one thing is how we do everything. So in a relationship, money tends to be the focus because it's the one thing that we can see.
Got it.
And it impacts our daily decisions. It causes conflict because it's a conversation about resources and decisions and power and struggle. And so it comes up as the number one reason, and it's also not really the reason at all.
That's interesting because that makes total sense. We want to make it about something. Yet a lot of it is a lot of other things that are kind of, you can always blame it on money if there is none.
That's
right. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So Lisa, you are a published author.
Yes.
And I hear some good news
Yes.
of something coming out soon. So please tell our audience more about that.
Okay, so my first book, Girl, Get Your Shit Together.
Get your shit together. And we do get to say a little bit of cuss words on this show. It's our show.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, so that was my first book written in 2017, which was really something that I wanted to step out as a money coach in the industry. There weren't a lot of money coaches on the scene at the time. I thought money mindset was really important to talk about, and then also some of these baby steps that are not budgeting. So I wrote that book in 2017. This next book, which is coming out in June of next year, is called Stop Budgeting, Start Living. Transform your money mindset, transform your life. And that's where it all starts for people is it's not enough to just talk about what to do with your money. It's all about who are you being on this planet? What are you born here to do? What is your God-given purpose? And then also, how are you going to use money to get you moving in the direction that you want to go? Not use it as the excuse for what's in the way.
Gotcha. That's something I'm interested in reading, because as you're talking and sharing, about you just it's not really just the money.
It's not.
It's so much bigger than that.
So much.
And about living and about living on purpose.
Yes.
And that really is kind of the foundation of Permission Mission too, is to get people educated, get people understanding that, like, think about life backwards,
Correct.
like think the end in mind, because I think you would go on that trip that
I think so too.
may be tight financially. However, then you can kind of, I don't know, stop having a Starbucks for a couple months or something.
We would
to kind of offset it. There are ways to change
Mhm.
just our behaviors of having, so we can have the things that we really want instead of just settling and
That's
being
right.
frustrated and just feeling stuck.
That's right. We and I know before I went through my own personal empowerment journey, my own personal discovery journey, I did feel a lot like life was just moving and I had little power in it. I felt like in a lot of ways the script was already written for me. This is just what you do. And it took me shaking that up and challenging it to realize that I do get to make decisions. And what I feel so fortunate about is that American women, more than any other woman really on the planet today, does have the ability to live life on her terms. We are more free to even take on credit,
Yes.
to make decisions for ourselves, to get a divorce, to not have that script written for us, although it doesn't always feel that way. And when we can understand and know that, yes, it will not be easy, it will take work,
Yeah.
but that you can change the script of your life and start living the way that you really want to live, that's when I think motivations change, our lives change, and we don't die with the regrets. And I think a good example of that is my stepson, my now adopted son. His mom, 37 years old, died. We as a family always had hope that we would repair that relationship, we'd have a deeper connection with her, and that things would heal. We held on to hope for that. And when she died, it felt like the cord was ripped or the rug was ripped from under us.
Yeah.
But more than anything, she's 37 years old. She didn't get to live her life, play her life full out. And for us, none of us know when our last day on earth is going to be.
No.
So is our life going to be an excuse, a reason, or a justification for why we didn't live the way we want it to live? Or are we going to have the courage to play full out, which means take risk, which means maybe lose, but are we willing to do it anyway? And now more than ever, we've got to do it. I believe that.
We're being called to do it, and it's nothing about leaving the men out. It's just men know how to do a lot of these things, like financially and stuff like that. It's women kind of rising up to feel good about the responsibility of doing great things
And support each other.
Supporting one another, that we can do it. Yes, John, we have a question.
No, but I do have a statement that I think most women alive today, not all, but most that were born after 1970 do not realize that a woman could not get a credit card, that a woman could not own property, a lot of things that women were not, they couldn't open a bank account.
We didn't have those freedoms.
Right.
We couldn't own a home.
And so it's just been, so what, that's 54 years.
Yep.
And men have had a lot longer to be able to deal with those kinds of things that
Correct.
women haven't had the opportunity to.
You're right. We haven't. We have a huge learning curve. Thank you for that point, John, is that it's only been a few decades. And before that, so you're in your 50s, there wasn't a woman before you that had that privilege or that freedom. And it was maybe when you were a little older that came into play, but that's such a perfect example of the work that we have to do on this planet financially as women. Is we have to learn, we get to learn, we have the freedom to do that. But we've seen men mess up a lot. Have we not?
Sure.
We have. We've seen men, we're seeing it real time today, men making decisions and messing up and getting caught. And women, we're going to have to get into the ring of our lives to experience all of that and lead in a new way. And I do believe that will happen, but we have to get in the ring and we have to lead and we have to take risk and we have to challenge ourselves and support one another in doing that so that we can see the world as a healed world. Yeah. Women are the healers of the world.
Absolutely. And I believe a lot of men would agree with that. I know that, men are coming around not wanting to do it on their own either. You know what I mean? Like, this could be a whole other show.
Totally.
Maybe more on the side of divorce and stuff like that, because I will have a show I want to talk more about that. I think a lot of people still are in their grief with divorce, feeling like a big failure.
I did.
And I did too, forever. And
Yeah.
I didn't think that there was life after divorce. And I felt doomed.
Yeah.
And the reality is that that's not the case. It's really what do you want? That was the question I just kept asking myself every day.
Yeah.
Is like, what do I want? Mary, what do you want?
Yeah.
You know, this happened because it happened. It's not the end of the world. There's still life to live. There's still decisions to be made. There are still failures to fail fast and forward. So that's a whole nother show. But I was just thinking that, you know, like men are making room for women to be partners. They don't want to be alone.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
and women don't want to be alone either.
No, absolutely not.
And that's just, you know, not to get into all the other different types of relationships, but like in general, just men
nobody
and women.
wants to be alone.
Nobody wants to be alone.
No, Brene Brown's work has been foundational in saying that we want to be seen, heard, and loved, period. All of us want to be seen, heard, and loved. We want to feel connected. And then there's all these things that get in the way. And so as when men and women together, we need to be on this journey together. The thing that my husband said on my podcast earlier this year, it stemmed from a breakfast conversation we were having. And he said, men are tired. Men are tired of carrying this all on their own. And I believe it.
Yeah.
We have more men and younger boys committing suicide today more than ever who are choosing out of life altogether because they're tired and they don't have the strategies and they don't feel loved. So collectively, this is our work to do so that we can all live our best lives.
Absolutely. Well, you brought up a good point. You know, this month is National Suicide Month, and it is something I do talk about. Nevada ranks 7th highest in the nation for suicide.
Yeah.
It also, Montana, suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. Montana at 28.7%, Alaska 27.6%, and Wyoming 25.6%. This is something that we'll continue to talk about. What resist, persist is not talking about death. Suicide is something we need to talk about. We can talk about. And if we get it into the homes of these individuals who have never had anybody actually say to them, you know, what is death to you? What is, you know, and like hear the discussions coming from that one question. I really believe that people will be less likely to take their life they're not educated about death.
No.
It's kind of just like it's not a one for all fix, right? It's just a temporary moment. I mean, I, in my teenage years, am not the same person. My life in my teenage years is not the same as it is today. And that's where a person who's going out is just that, and not have permission to open up how alone they are and how it is the solution that they feel is the only solution that they have, and they don't.
Yep. My son, after his mom died, was suicidal. And we threw ourselves into the work of figuring out how we can help him and support him. And the most impactful thing that came to me in that time was that the pain feels so much that they just don't know how to not be in pain anymore. They just don't know how to not be in pain anymore. And so when we can have tools and support and conversations around the pain, we can walk through the pain to the other side.
Wow. That is, thank you for sharing that, and also for being a pillar for him, being in his life. And you just recently adopted him as your son.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. And it came from lots of open, honest conversations, holding space for his anger, holding space for his rage, not making him wrong for feeling the way that he felt or that there was anything wrong with him. It required a lot of my husband and I to take care of ourselves also, because we were dealing with so many emotions on his side, and telling him over and over and over again how much we loved him, how much he mattered. And teenagers don't have perspective. What's happening to them in that time of their lives is the only thing that's happening to them.
Yeah.
It takes us getting through our teenage years to have perspective on it, heartbreak or otherwise. So mentorship, modeling, emotional responsibility, emotional health are some of the best things that we can do. And interestingly enough, I'd be curious with Montana, Alaska, and Wyoming alone, because those are 3 states with a high concentration of wealth.
Interesting.
So there are rural areas and communities, but there are high concentrations of wealth in those areas. So I'd be interested to see the correlation between the suicide and the wealth and the statistics there, because money can be just as isolating as anything else.
I've got chills, just kind of like you're hitting some real nuggets.
Yeah.
You are hitting some, like, that's it. That's the button.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'd be interested to know too, because it is, I mean, it's something we've got to look at and we want to address, and we want to become, create some strategies. I'm
Right.
going to continue using that, Lisa. I love
More
that.
strategies.
So what are 2 hot habits that we can start today? We're gonna end the show here. Our time is, see how fast it went?
So fast.
It went so fast. So
Okay.
what are 2 habits that you can have somebody start today on the practice of saving?
Okay, saving. Well, first of all, create different savings buckets.
Okay.
So if you're going to start saving, start with at least 2 savings buckets. And I just did a talk about this at a corporation in Las Vegas last week. And I said, there's only 2 reasons to save: now and later.
That's it.
Keep it so simple, you guys. Keep it so simple. You need money later for things, and you need money for now for things. And the one thing that families will constantly go into debt for is travel, because those are priorities and life experiences that people want. So be honest with yourself about what you need money for, and learn how to save for the now first.
Okay.
Which is, people are all stressed that you're not saving enough for retirement, you're not saving enough for education, you're not saving enough for emergencies, you're not saving enough for all these things, which is in the future. But make sure you have the money to live your life now. Right now. So put money away for travel first. That's a novel concept. Enjoy your life now. So then once you have money in travel, isn't it that much easier to save for your future?
Yes.
Because you can live now.
Yes.
Right? So that's one strategy. Learn how to live and save for money for now and the things that you really want to do. It's life-changing. And then the second thing when it comes to saving is be honest with yourself about how long you're actually going to live.
Be honest with yourself about how long you're actually going to live.
Yeah. So my family lives long. My aunt, not my great aunt even, my aunt is 89 years old and there's no stopping in sight. My dad's 82. There's no stopping in sight. My grandmother lived until her 90s. So I'm going to live to 100.
Awesome.
As long as God willing, I'm going to live a long time. And for women, we live longer than men. So be honest with yourself, because if you're saving for just like an itty bitty retirement or something, you're not, like, you have to own how much life actually costs.
Yes. Yes.
So make sure you enjoy your life now, but really be honest with yourself about how long you're really going to live, because those retirement numbers, those are realities. And if you're not saving enough, well, if you're young and you're watching this, you have choices now, or you won't have choices later.
You said it. You won't have choices later. So how you can get a hold of Lisa, because she is just a
I'm on fire
powerhouse
today.
She is on fire. You can check in with Lisa. How can they get a hold of you? What's the best way?
Follow me on Instagram
Okay.
at Savvy Money with Lisa. That would be very active on Instagram. Or head to my website. You can take a money personality quiz on my website. Find out what your money personality is. And that's lisachastain.com.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa, for being here on the
Yeah.
show today. I know that I've gotten some great nuggets. I know that our audience will get some great nuggets out of it. Everybody remember the 5-second rule: favor inside and value everyone and everything. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. And next week, I am saying it here, the Dukes will be here. Yeah, the Dukes will be here. The Dukes of Hazzards will be here next week on the show. So you've got to watch it. Tune in. Thank you so much. Have a great week.